On a crisp spring morning in 1991, 5 boys left their homes in Daegu, South Korea, laughing and racing toward a mountain they'd climbed dozens of times before. They promised to be back before dusk. They never returned. More than 3 decades later, their story still echoes through the dark corners of Korea's collective memory. A mystery so haunting that it changed laws, broke families, and left behind clues that only deepen the pain. If you love true crime stories that never let you sleep easy, subscribe to Mystery Junkie now. Hit like, drop your theories in the comments, because tonight, we're stepping into the lost footsteps of the Frog Boys. March 26, 1991. It was meant to be a day off, a national holiday, for local elections in Daegu, South Korea. 5 young boys, bubbling with energy and mischief, begged their parents to let them roam the nearby hills. They wanted to find salamander eggs along the shallow streams on Mount Waryeong, a childhood adventure countless Korean kids enjoyed each spring. Woo Cheol-won, Jo Ho-yeon, Kim Young-yu, Park Chan-in, and Kim Jong-sik. Best friends, neighbors, sons who promised they'd be back for lunch. They slipped on their worn sneakers, grabbed homemade slingshots, and headed into the morning sun without a care in the world. As the day stretched on, the sun climbed high and then began its slow descent behind the mountain. The boys' mothers called out from their doorsteps, straining their eyes down the dirt roads. But only silence answered back. Shadows crept over the village as streetlights flickered on, and the seeds of panic took root in every home. By nightfall, worry exploded into fear. Fathers grabbed flashlights and lanterns and climbed the dark trails, yelling their sons' names into the cold wind. What they didn't know was that this night, the first of thousands, would mark the beginning of a nightmare that would tear their families apart. As dawn broke, the mountain turned into a maze of searchers. Police officers combed the trails half-heartedly, convinced the boys had simply run away. A childish prank, they said, but the parents knew better. Their sons were too young to survive alone, and they'd taken nothing but their slingshots. Soon, the local media latched onto the story. Reporters dubbed them the Frog Boys, a simple misunderstanding, since the kids were actually searching for salamanders, not frogs. But the name stuck, a symbol of innocence swallowed by the wild. Volunteers poured in. Soldiers with sniffer dogs trampled the underbrush. Helicopters circled overhead, scanning the forest with thermal cameras. Search parties worked day and night, setting up makeshift camps at the mountain's base. Tents flickered with lantern light as mothers slept on thin blankets, hoping each sunrise would bring their sons back down the trail. Days turned into weeks. Rumors flickered like ghost lights. Someone saw the boys near a bus stop. Another swore they spotted them begging at a train station. Each tip led nowhere, and with every false lead, hope cracked a little more. Years passed. The trail grew cold, but the families never gave up. For 11 long years, Mount Waryeong became both shrine and graveyard for parents who refused to stop searching. Then, in September 2002, everything changed. A local man hiking the slopes stumbled over a tangle of faded clothing poking through the soil. Beneath the leaves and dirt, bones, small, fragile bones, waited to be found. 5 sets of remains lay clustered together, so close to home it seemed impossible they hadn't been discovered sooner. The boys' jackets were torn and buried with them. Rusted bullets and spent casings lay scattered among the bones. These weren't the signs of a simple accident. Forensics teams worked fast, but 11 years of rain, snow, and shifting soil had done their damage. At first, authorities claimed the boys had died of hypothermia, a tragic accident, they said, but the parents knew better. They demanded deeper autopsies, and the truth crawled out from the dirt. Skull fractures, evidence of blunt force trauma, broken bones inconsistent with a fall or cold exposure. Someone had hurt these boys. Someone had hidden their tiny bodies where the trees could keep their secrets. In the years that followed, theories grew like weeds in the cracks of broken justice. Some believed the boys wandered too close to a restricted military training ground near the mountain. Maybe they saw something they weren't supposed to see, an accidental shooting during target practice, bullets lost in the trees, young witnesses silenced to protect reputations. Whispers of a cover-up spread through the village like poison. Soldiers might have panicked, burying the evidence deep in the forest. And when search parties came, they turned a blind eye. Maybe they moved the remains later, once the heat died down, explaining why the boys were found in an area supposedly searched countless times. Others spin darker tales. A predator lurking in the hills, waiting for easy prey. The way the boys' clothes were torn, the skull fractures, the bullets, they don't add up neatly. Was it a crime of opportunity, or something more organized? A serial killer moving unnoticed through a country, still waking up to the horror of monsters living next door. Connections have been drawn to the infamous Weizong serial murders, an unsolved string of brutal killings that terrorized Korea in the same era. But no hard evidence ever bridged the gap. Just speculation, cold and unsatisfying. If there's one thing the Frog Boys case proves, it's that sometimes the system meant to protect can fail in the worst ways. From a moment police dismissed the boys as runaways, precious time slipped away. Tracks faded, clues vanished in the spring rain. When the remains were finally found, mishandled forensics, and poor record keeping buried hope all over again. Witnesses faded with time, leads turned to dust, and then came the cruelest twist, the statute of limitations. In 2006, Korean law said too much time had passed. No one could be charged, no matter how clear the evidence or how loud the truth screamed from those shallow graves. It took another 9 years of public outrage before Korea scrapped the statute for murder altogether. But by then, the trail had grown too cold to warm again. The Frog Boys never came home, but they left behind a legacy carved in sorrow. A warning to every parent, a lesson to every investigator. Today, their faces still linger on banners and documentaries. Each year, parents climb Mount Waryeong to light candles at the site where their children were found. They whisper prayers into the trees, hoping that somewhere, somehow, the truth still lives. Movies like Children and documentaries like In Search of the Frog Boys keep the case alive in the public mind. Schools teach new generations why we can never look away from stories like this. Because the lesson is simple. Monsters do exist. Sometimes they wear uniforms. Sometimes they hide in forests. And sometimes they walk among us, unnoticed for decades. So, what really happened to Woo, Joe, Kim, Park, and Kim on that ordinary spring day? Was it an accident covered up in panic? A predator who vanished like smoke? Or something darker, woven deep into the quiet hills of Daegu? Until someone talks. Until someone digs deep enough to find the piece of truth that has slept too long. We may never know. But the next time you step onto a mountain path, or see a group of boys laughing with slingshots in their pockets, remember the Frog Boys. And remember that some secrets don't stay buried forever. Drop your theory in the comments below. Subscribe to Mystery Junkie to keep the search alive. Because every mystery needs fresh eyes. And one day, maybe just maybe, the mountain will speak again.